18 years ago, I flew on a fellowship to China with a new Nikon camera to document the stories of women my age who were experiencing China's economic revival at that time. I didn't have an email address, nobody I knew did, and cell phones were a Jetsons-like fantasy of the future. I think I called home twice in the 6 months that I was over there. Fast forward to today, and for a fraction of the cost of my Nikon, I now bring digital cameras to countries like Sudan and Namibia as part of leadership development trainings with public health professionals. But in the context of these trainings, I don't tell their stories or take their photos, they do. Because I use digital storytelling invites participants to tell their own stories from their own perspectives. Digital storytelling has now become a key tool in these trainings because it puts the power of the story squarely in the hands of the subject. And by telling their own stories, people are able to tap into their authentic voices, their strengths, and their achievements. So it's based on these experiences that I've had that I'd like to spend a couple minutes this morning talking about how we build international partnerships now in the digital age that actually create lasting change. And another way to think about that is, what does it take to take transactional change and turn it into transformational change? Now, when I'm talking about transactional change, we're thinking about a good or a service that moves between people, a loaf of bread, a vaccine, maybe a soccer ball. Transactional change is important because it fills an immediate need, but it's also appealing because it's easy to measure. It's much easier to measure, actually, than transformational change. When we talk about transformational change, we're talking about a fundamental shift in a mindset or behavior. Transformational change, when we think of it transforming an individual, transforming a community, or even transforming a country. And transformational change, it's harder to measure because attitudes, norms, and values, they just don't fit easily into boxes. And changing them takes much longer. So take this as a story. This past May, professors at the art department in Carnegie Mellon University decided to open a restaurant in Pittsburgh as part of a social experiment. And they called this restaurant the Conflict Kitchen. Now, the Conflict Kitchen is a lot like any of the takeout restaurants we have here in Seattle, but with one important difference. The Conflict Kitchen only serves food from countries with which the United States is in conflict. Now, sadly, there are a good number of countries to choose from. So the Conflict Kitchen's idea is that they're going to rotate the menu and the cuisine every 4 months. They decided to start with Iran. So this summer, the Conflict Kitchen was dubbed the Kibbutz Kitchen. And a kibbutz is a traditional Iranian pita sandwich made with meat, basil, and mint, the perfect takeout food. But the Conflict Kitchen was never about just selling sandwiches. Remember, there was a social experiment here as well. They wanted to change and transform behavior. So the Conflict Kitchen, while it feeds appetites, it also feeds its customers' imaginations about a land that they perhaps have not experienced themselves. And to that end, every single sandwich, like you see here, is actually wrapped in a wrapper where inside there are stories told by Iranian Americans from Pittsburgh about their homeland. They also host live Skype dinners where the good people of Pittsburgh and the good people of Tehran connect over the same meal, the same cuisine, same menu, and conversations unfold, as does the link and the bridge that creates that understanding between Iranians and Americans shrinks just a little bit. But they didn't just stop there. John Rubin, the professor who's one of the professors behind the Conflict Kitchen, has started an initiative called Never Been to Tehran. And Never Been to Tehran is an online photo upload initiative where people from around the world go to this site. There are hundreds of photos there now, and they upload images of what they imagine Tehran to look like. And so the idea behind this, and these are examples of some of the images, is that these images will be displayed in public spaces and galleries simultaneously around the world, including in Tehran. So this example has both the transactional and the transformational. The transactional, you're hungry, you go up to the storefront, you buy a sandwich. But these last examples I've given speak to the beginnings of the transformational. Stories from local Iranians find a creative location. Live Skype dinners in Pittsburgh and Tehran, food functions as a form of unofficial diplomacy. And offshoots like Never Been to Tehran, they inspire global participation and challenge preconceived notions that we all have of places that we have not been. Minds won't change overnight, but the story has started. Now, whether it's building international understanding or meeting the targets of the Millennium Development Goals, which many of the speakers will discuss today, the answer that we all must answer, the question that we all must answer remains: how do you link that transactional and the transformational? Because they are both important. Buying a sandwich alone isn't going to do it. Technology alone isn't going to do it. So the question still remains, what will? And my answer, as Hansen indicated, this would involve leadership and storytelling. Leadership is the glue that binds transactional and transformational change. To me, leadership means values, it means stewardship, and it also means an emotional connection. And I'm not only referring to leadership at elected official level, I'm also talking about people at all levels, people like you and me. Because the best vaccines in the world, they need leadership at every single level to ship, distribute, monitor the entire vaccination process. And the conflict kitchen, it would have just remained a pipe dream if it didn't have leadership to find the storefront, to hire staff, to grow the mission, and to expand the profile of the conflict kitchen. And for those of you that might have Pittsburgh in your upcoming travels, they're rolling out Afghani cuisine in a couple weeks. Furthermore, supporting leadership at all levels speaks to a human truth that we all crave purpose in our lives. It's precisely because of this purpose that we crave that I believe that storytelling is so integral to strong leadership. See, a story is not just a catchy way to tell a story. It's not just a catchy way to share information. Stories convey ideas. Stories define us, and they motivate us, whether they're digital or unplugged. And today, thanks to digital media, more people have opportunities to tell their stories, and those stories can be shared faster and farther than ever before. This year, I worked with a team of health professionals in Namibia as part of a leadership development training where they were asked to create a digital story of their unique leadership journeys. And this is what one participant had to say about the experience. She said, sometimes you need someone to tell you you have a story, to remember that you have your own story that needs to be told. The last 2 years, I didn't think that I had done anything, but when I created my digital story, I realized I had really done a lot. And right there, that's the power of creating and sharing your own story. A transactional exchange of a camera leads to a transformational experience. So this morning, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has generously invited all of us here in Seattle and in 60 locations around the world to be part of TEDxChange. The speakers and the TEDxChange speakers this morning are just some of the leaders who are changing the world. And after today, their stories will become part of ours. Thank you.